Good morning, everyone. Looks like people are coming into our session, so to respect everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started. Just to make sure that you're all in the right session, this is the Partners in Care Landlord Engagement Project, and our guest panelist today is Gracie, and we've got about 18 or so people, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Laura Thielen, and I will be your host today. And I would like to introduce Gracie Suaglar, who is our Landlord Engagement Program Manager for Partners in Care. Gracie graduated from the University of Hawaii with a bachelor's in social work. In 2010, Gracie was asked by the HBD Kalihi District to do a joint volunteer outreach project to assist and support our houseless community members by assisting them with obtaining supportive documents and offering alternative shelter solutions, which was not an easy task. As a child, Gracie would love to build and rebuild anything in the house and outside in the yard, and thought, why can't I support community members with rebuilding life? I made it my mission to learn about the Housing First theory and practice this theory on a daily basis as a service provider. When I am not housing clients or supporting fellow colleagues, I love spending time with my kids, going fishing, and watching football. Gracie truly believes through collaboration and community togetherness, we can put an end to homelessness. All right, thank you to everyone who has joined us. Today is going to be more of a talk story session with Gracie. Many of you already know a lot about the Landlord Engagement Project and how it's been working over the last year. I'll give a quick overview of the actual program and how it started, and then we'll go in and ask Gracie some questions. And if anyone has specific questions that they'd like to ask Gracie, on the far right bottom of your screen, you will see the Q&A box. Please put in your questions there, and I will make sure that we address as many as we can during this session. All right. So the Landlord Engagement Program has been a part of Partners in Care for just over a year. Gracie joined us in November of 2019 with the goal of assisting the entire homeless system with accessing housing units for clients throughout the system. This was kind of the brainchild of Jay King, who used to be with Partners in Care, along with our city partners. Since Gracie has taken over the Landlord Engagement Program and started it, it was a very quick ramp up for her. We were immediately seeing great results in this program. And it's really the key part of this program is that it's not just an agreement with tenants. It's an agreement between tenants, providers, landlords, and our Landlord Engagement Project. And that working team together has made this program a huge success. Within the last year, Gracie has assisted over 200 individuals and families move into shelter and into housing, along with partnering up with the providers, whether that's case managers, housing navigators, or other folks from the community that give us calls. Within our contract, 75% of those who are referred to the Landlord Engagement Program need to be going through the Coordinated Entry System program. Another 25% of those that Gracie provides services to can come from outside. A good example of this is if we're doing outreach, like we have been over the last several months in relationship and in coordination with Project Vision and other outreach teams, Gracie has been able to help some of those individuals as well who may not be in the by name list or going through the Coordinated Entry System. With that, I'm going to pass things over to Gracie, and Gracie, you can do a little bit of an explanation about what you're up to, and then we can start with some questions and answers.
Thank you, Laura. So as Laura stated, the program was built to and be a supportive program with landlords. Landlords are just as important as the neighbors that we serve and place into housing. One of the greatest key selling points of having landlords partner up with landlords program. We offer a 24-hour, 7 days a week supportive hotline where they can call with any issues or concerns with the tenants that they have, and either we try to situation on the phone, or what I'll do is go to the unit and talk with the landlord and the tenant, and also call the partnering agency that the tenant is connected to let them know about what's going on with the situation. And landlords like that. Just like with our clients that we serve, they need supportive services in place, so does landlords. Landlords, don't have anyone to turn to when they have situations or issues that come up with their tenants. So it's nice that they have someone that they can contact and actually answers the phone right away and problem solves with them right away. Another asset that we have with the Landlord Engagement Program with engaging landlords is that we have a risk mitigation fund. So we are able to cover any damages that supersedes the security deposit. And that's a key important part of our program. A lot of, our tenants that reside in units sometimes have not enough, how do I say this? They have, issues with their homes, and they don't communicate with their landlords. Like, for example, we had a landlord that we work with had an issue with one of their tenants with plumbing. But we were very lucky that the damage wasn't extensive, so their security deposit was able to cover it. But if that wasn't covered, then it would have been through our Landlord Engagement Risk Mitigation Fund that would have to help assist with that fund. Also, we can assist. What we're trying to do is build an inventory of housing, affordable housing, so that if we have clients that need assistance with obtaining housing through our CES system or through outside of CES, we can house clients quicker and faster by sending you links to the homes, connecting providers and clients to the landlord that has the units available. Lately, because of COVID-19, the LEP program has been housing clients virtually, which is pretty awesome. And that way we can house multiple clients at the same time. Clients can have multiple choices in housing options, which is what we want to do, is give a lot of clients options in housing choices. So that has been great. We want to actually encourage and promote virtual housing as much as possible. I think one of the toughest things that LEP has come across is actually engaging landlords to house community members with more than 2 pets in their household. That is something that we are working on with landlord incentives. So, yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
Let me start off with a couple, Gracie. Can you explain to everyone what the process is that if they have a client or they think they might have a client who would need this added service of landlord engagement, what would be the process that a case manager or a housing navigator or someone from a program would do to get involved in the landlord engagement program?
So if you have a client that may need support in obtaining housing, what you would need to do, what the provider would need to do is go on to our Partners in Care website, search up Landlord Engagement Program, and submit a agency request form. It only takes 30 seconds. It just asks for basic information, and what happens is once that I receive that referral, I make contact with the provider and gather information and demographic areas of where the client would like to be potentially housed, what type of housing assistance this client is being supported with, and then just to see if there's any pets or if they need an ADA unit, and that's how we actually start the process of housing the client.
Great, thank you. How would a landlord get involved in this program?
So if a landlord wants to partner up with the LEP program, that landlord can also go onto the Partners in Care website, click on Landlord Engagement, and we have a landlord form that they would complete. Only takes 20 seconds as well. Once LEP obtains that form, we engage and make contact with the landlord. We go out, look at the unit, and also bring the documentation that the landlord needs to sign. And then once the landlord agrees and assigns our documents, we then send out the housing rentals out to all the providers that we support and that are partner up with LEP. And then us with connections thereafter.
Great, and this is a question from Rena. Is the application fee covered by this program?
Normally not. A lot of what we're finding is a lot of housing programs already have funds for supportive fees. We've had some great partnerships with landlords. For example, Tom Shinsato, they really love what LEP is all about. They have agreed to waive their fees for our clients that come through for housing to them. So they gave me a paper application. So if you have any clients that if we had a client that was interested in a Tom Shinsato property, I would automatically email the provider the application, and then that application can be filled out by either the case manager or the client themselves and sent back to Tom Shinsato, and then Tom Shinsato automatically waives those fees. In fact, we have 3 landlords that have agreed to waive their application fees so that our clientele, it wouldn't be a challenge for our clientele in when they're applying for housing.
So this is partly in response to that, Gracie. One of the main things that we want to make really clear is that this landlord engagement project is available to the entire system. So along with all the work that the providers are doing with individuals, this is an added thing that can be added to that service. So rather than having case managers possibly going out and trying to find housing, you can utilize the landlord engagement project for parts of that so that you can work on the other things such as document readiness and working on applications. Gracie, we have a question from Betty Lou. How many landlords on average are in your pool in any month? And how many of those landlords generally end up accepting one of your clients versus maybe someone who applies from the general community?
So currently, LEP has over 40 individual landlords and property managers. As of today, we have about 160 available units. Location Hawaii, which is one of our big partners, has about 138 units available. About 60 of them are senior, and the other individual family units. We also have, let's see, so so that's, I have a cold calling out to landlords. There are landlords that do say no, but again, we keep calling every single day to engage new landlords or even previous landlords that told us no, and they actually end up changing their minds sometimes. So it's kind of cool. But we can, we make about 60 to 70 phone calls a month, and we engage at least 5 of them per month.
Great. And leading on to that, how many landlords, what kind of percentage do you find that actually charge an application fee?
Well, out of our almost 50 landlords, there's only 3 that charge application fees. And we're trying to work with them and to actually to not charge those fees.
Great. And then earlier we talked a little bit about the damage mitigation fund, and although it is available, I'm, as the person who actually sends the bills to the city for this project, we actually have not used our damage fund in any significant way. We do have a cap on how much we can provide in damage mitigation, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gracie, I believe it's $2,000. But most of the folks that actually have damaged their apartments, it's a minimal fee. And so we've actually restructured our budget to allow us to hire a second landlord engagement program. Can you talk a little bit about that, Gracie?
Sure. Well, one of the reasons why we were able to do that is because LEP has been successful with very minimizing damages to the unit. When there's communications between the tenant, the landlord, and providers, we are actually able to prevent a lot of damages from happening. So hence why we have not actually up to, it's been a year, from when we started, we have not used any of our risk mitigation funds yet. Knocking on wood. So with that, we were able to hire another person. Her name is Annie Ocampo. She's been with us for about 4 months. She's our new landlord engagement specialist. So that, that allows us to double. What we're trying to do is double the numbers in housing placements, and also with resources to our in recruiting and engaging, and then also supportive services to the current landlords that we serve.
Great, thank you. This is a question about expanding or being able to utilize this fund on another island. Is that a possibility with this program?
I believe that other counties could have a landlord engagement program. I think it's a great idea to have it on neighbor islands. As we have shown that it does, we've been very successful here in Honolulu, and it's a great program. I think this is a great way to engage and support landlords. Again, as I stated, it's not just the clientele that we serve that needs supportive services, it's also the landlords. And this, selling the program is easy. Once the landlords hear that there's a risk mitigation fund and there's a 24-hour hotline, a lot of them, their ears perk up, because that is something that they know that they need, especially with, we're going through a pandemic right now with COVID-19. So there, a lot of people forget that landlords are human, and they also need supportive services as well. So I believe that it would be a great opportunity to actually have it on our other neighboring islands.
Yeah, I agree as well. This contract is actually with the City and County of Honolulu. So we would be happy to share any information about our program with any neighbor islands that want to reach out either to a private funding source or a city and county official to see if this would work on neighbor islands. For those who have the ability to see our chat, I have put our website into the chat, and it's just real simple. It's partnersincareoahu.org, and you can find all the information about the Landlord Engagement Project there. Gracie, a couple of other questions. I always forget what this stands for, Betty Lou, but the LIHTC projects, for example, in Waianae, have lower wait lists. Have you approached any affordable housing projects to work with your program and possibly inform you when an opening may be coming up? And that just happened this week. So, Gracie, go ahead and give some insight into that.
Sure thing. Actually, we do work with a lot of affordable properties here in Honolulu. One of the largest ones is Locations. They property manage a lot of affordable properties here on the island. They deal with seniors and family units. EAH is another partnering agency that has affordable units. We are also working with MDI, Marks Development. They also have a lot of affordable units, but we also work with our city and county. So I was just given maybe about 2 days ago about 42 units from the city and county. So some of the units are in like Chinatown Gateway, Marin Tower, Winston Holly. So yes, every day when there's units available, we get property managers that email, text, call. In fact, we have every day our landlords call us, hey Gracie, we have this unit available, and it'll be open at this time and date. So that's when we start sending out massive emails to inform our partnering providers that we have these units available. In fact, I'm working with the city right now with Hawaiian Properties to actually lower some of their screening criteria so that we can get more of the clients that we serve into those open units. We all know that credit and documentation is a challenge with the clientele that we serve. So right now I'm working with them to lower those standards so that we can get our folks in quicker and in a timely manner so that we can get them housed.
Great, thank you. One of the other questions that came up is, when agencies apply for LEP, are they subcontracting with LEP, or is it a partnership, or is it a service?
It's a partnership. We partner up together. So pretty much when a provider wants to partner up with LEP, we send them a partnership form. They complete it and then return it back to LEP. We then make contact with each other, and they let us know what type of supportive services that they'll be supporting their clientele with, and then we let them know what LEP will be able to do and for them for housing, and we go from there.
And I wanted to bring up as well, the other day, Gracie and I had the great pleasure of meeting with a housing management firm that is going to be overseeing the opening of for those in the Honolulu area, you know this building probably very well, the Pimple Building on Queen Emma. That will be opening. I believe people are moving in this weekend. I was lucky enough to actually be able to go and take a tour of that building when it was in the midst of being remodeled. And I will tell you that is one of the most beautiful buildings that I have seen for apartments. And unfortunately, even though they had 500 applications, many of those people did not qualify. They were over income or whatever. And so they're actually reaching out to us and saying that they need some more people that are at the 60% of AMI to move into still some vacant apartments in that building. If you are around next week, we're hoping to pull together a tour of the building so that providers can go in and check it out so that they can share the information with their clients. And even though it will probably be filled up completely by December, that will be a wonderful building to move into if there's any units available. So we'll be putting that out, that invitation, as soon as we get it from the property manager. We will be putting that out to our listserv so that people can come and take a tour of a beautifully remodeled project for their clients. Sorry, I was muted. Just to follow up on one of the questions about whether or not you subcontract or partner with LEP, I want to make it very clear that we are funded through the City and County of Honolulu, so there are no fees to either the landlord, the tenant, or the provider for any of the services we provide through this program. What is the project name of the Pimple Building? Gracie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's just the Queen Emma Apartments.
Yes, it's the Queen Emma Tower.
Yes. Yes. And the same management firm also houses the Kauai River Street project, which has recently, over the last several years, been renovated, and that property is actually very nice as well.
Yes, and they also property manage a building out in Waimanalo, which is currently going to be renovated, and so they'll be having units available, but unfortunately those units will not be available until late next year.
All right, Gracie, is credit one of the biggest problems for families, especially in housing?
Yes, it is, and it's very unfortunate, and hence why LEP is working with property managers and private landlords to lower that screening criteria. Also, I believe low-income housing is requiring scores of 600 or above to even enter their property. So it's really a challenge, and that's something that we're working on to have property managers and landlords lower that screening criteria, because yes, it is a challenge.
Gracie, do you have access to landlords and projects around the island, or are you mostly in one area versus another?
No, we are island-wide. I have units in Laie, all the way through West Side to Honolulu to Hawaii Kai. We've placed island-wide.
And having some units over on the windward side is very important. I'm sure some of you saw that there was a project going up or being proposed for Kailua, and that was shut down. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of available units in the Kailua area, but hopefully we'll get some in Waimanalo as well as in other areas in the windward side. Gracie, can you explain what landlords have to have in order to be able to be considered for this program? Do they need any documentation to prove that they are a legitimate landlord?
Yes. So what we do is when we have a partnering landlord call us to partner up, we actually go down, we go to the unit, we do a unit inspection, and then we also do a quick property search on the city and county website, just to make sure that, that all the documents, taxes are paid. We also, and if it's a property management agreement, we ask to see a property management agreement form. So then that way we know that they're not subleasing, there's no fraud involved, that everything is legitimate. And then
great. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Sorry. We also inform landlords that, there is a W-9 that needs to be filled out and completed and signed and given to providers in order for them to get payment.
So one of the things that I have heard over the last couple of weeks is you all are aware of all the COVID money that has been going towards people who need assistance with paying either past due rent or current rent. One of the problems that has been encountered with those projects is that a lot of the landlords that are throughout Hawaii actually are not true landlords in the technical sense, and they're kind of mom and pop extra ohana unit kind of a situation. Unfortunately, due to the legal rules of CARES funding and other kinds of funding that's being used to assist people, those folks may be out of luck and will not be able to get that resource because they are not set up with a legitimate landlord, which is an unfortunate oversight. And some people, it's hard to find housing in Hawaii at an affordable rate, and so this adds to the problem, which has meant that several people have no longer qualified for assistance through those programs. So the more legitimate landlords that are in our listing will help everybody hopefully get the assistance they need. Gracie, let's see, I'm going to go through some of these. All right, can you give us an insight into what the process is that you see from a beginning to end of the Landlord Engagement Program? Can you explain how you work the entire continuum of placing someone into housing?
So LEP starts with first engaging and getting all the documents signed by the partnering landlord. We then distribute the units out to our partnering agencies. Once an agency contacts us, we introduce the partnering agency and the client to the landlord. Client looks at the unit, and if they like it, we gather all the documents, assist the provider with gathering of the documents, and then make sure that everything is ready for the client for move-in, and that's it. And then I also provide a follow-up phone call with the tenant just to make sure that everything was smooth, hot water is working, water is going, flowing through, electricity is on, there's no issues with the stove, the refrigerators, even though we do that during our unit inspections, but just to make sure that their move-in was smooth and that they're not needing anything. And then we also follow up the provider to make sure that they don't need any other documents, or that everything was signed so that payment can be sent to the landlord on a timely basis.
Great. Thank you, Gracie. Please continue to send in your questions. Gracie, I know that there's going to be some more funding coming through for rapid rehousing through the CARES money over the next year or so. Well, I guess this isn't really a question, it's more of a statement. Will Landlord Engagement Project be involved in that process?
Yes, we will. We will be assisting with having a database of units that's widely available for the clientele that we will be serving. We want to make sure that from the day that the referral comes in to the moment that the client moves in, we want to make sure that it's a quick and safe transaction, because we want to make sure we get the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to keep those landlords happy.
Yes,
can you explain? Yep, I know in many instances there has been it's been necessary for a person to move out of a unit because of disruption, because it doesn't fit their needs. There's several different reasons that people may leave a property. What is LEP's involvement in that rehousing process?
So when LEP assists with rehousing of a family or individual, we want to make sure that we cover whatever situations or concerns that the tenant had in that previous home, so that we can make sure we find the most perfect home for them at that current time when we're rehousing. We notice that sometimes we're so busy trying to rehouse a client that we forget to support the client in what they want in their housing or what their housing needs are. So we want to make sure that we are working with the clientele. And then we also want to make sure that we get a landlord, we match them up with a landlord that can support the tenant's needs as well. Meaning that if they have a pet, having a landlord that's pet friendly. Also making sure that the tenant is able to communicate with their landlord. We noticed that a lot of the rehousing of tenants, one of the biggest reasons is they don't communicate with their landlord. It's either because they don't know how to, they're afraid to, or just can't get in touch with their landlord. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of our situations escalate and we have to rehouse clients. But we want to make sure that there's a perfect fit between the tenant and the landlord, and that the client.
That brings up a really important part of this is the idea behind tenant training and also landlord training. I think we assume that getting a person into the house is the biggest step, but oftentimes it requires actually teaching a tenant how to be a tenant, especially for folks who have had bad experiences in housing before. How do you address those kinds of issues, as well as the training for landlords on how to work with clients? Because oftentimes we don't want to share too much information about the medical and mental health impediments that our clients may have.
So well, actually, I have a perfect example. I have a private landlord who owns about 78 units in the area, and we have a great rapport with him. We try to match him up with the right clientele that we're trying to house. And he has, stated to LEP that one of the reasons why he has a lot of concerns and issues with the clientele being placed at his units is because they tend to not have or practice good tenant, mannerisms, meaning that they have pets, they forget to clean up after their pets, they invite a lot of their friends over after hours, and things like that. So what we do is when we introduce the tenant to the landlord and they have a great rapport established, the landlord has been kind enough to just actually create a soft list of house rules that are about maybe just has 5 items on it. And he actually, while we're there and the provider's there, he just kind of goes over with it with the tenant, and that actually helps. And then we also just remind the tenant that, hey, if you have a dog, don't forget to pick up after your pet. Observe quiet hours. If you're going to park your car, just make sure you park within the lines, because that's one of the biggest concerns that come up with some of our landlords. And then, sometimes they need to, because this is all new to them or it's been a while since they've been in housing, just reminding them and practicing, okay, rent is due on the 3rd. If it goes past 10 days after the 3rd, there's a small service fee. And reminding them that we are here to support them. If they have and they run into any issues or concerns, they can call us and let us know, and we can support them in addressing those concerns. So it's just having those wraparound services, and then just having, going over the lease with them, making sure that they understand the lease. The lease is about 5 pages long, and it has a lot of terminology that even some of us still can't understand. So it's just making sure that we go over the lease with them so that they do understand, making sure that they have resources on where to go if they need assistance with utilities, or maybe even assistance with finding a food bank and things like that. The lesser stressors that we can downplay for our landlords and tenants, the better the outcome is, and the better the success of the housing placement.
Yeah, the benefit for the landlords is, they want to keep their unit filled all of the time so that income is coming in, so that there's not a need to rehouse, because the cost of having an empty unit is significant for a landlord, just as it's very significant for a client to actually have to look for other housing. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that Gracie has shared with lots of people is make sure people feel comfortable with reaching out before an issue becomes untenable. That's really important, whether it's the landlord or the tenant, making sure that they know who to contact if there are any issues. We have another question. Do you accept room situations if the landlord can provide proof that they pay GET and income taxes, or is that too difficult to verify? Rooms may be cheaper, especially for elders who need housing. Many may not want to share, but some might.
So LEP does have single room occupants, which is what we call SROs. In fact, we actually assist a lot of our Medicaid providers in linking them up to SRO units on a daily, monthly basis. Looking up the landlord's information is easy to do. It is all public record. So far, LEP has not had any, we have not experienced any difficulties in obtaining all of a W-9. And we've done property searches. As I stated, we do property searches on all landlords, on all properties, just to make sure that their taxes are up to date, that they are the owners, or if they're not the owners, making sure that we have the property management agreement forms. But SROs, we house in SROs at least 6 units a month. So yes, they are a great resource for our clientele that don't have much income. They're on a set income limit. So we try to access those all the time. We engage with landlords periodically. I think the hardest thing though for SROs is finding SROs that are on ground floor units, because we noticed that a lot of the clientele that require single room occupants are either are in a wheelchair or senior, that they need to be on a ground floor unit.
Gracie, I know that this case was a little bit bumpy, but that it in the end it turned out really well. Could you kind of give an overview without sharing too much personal information about the individual that you helped out that Scott had directed you to out in the Laie area?
Oh, okay. So Scott's office called in regards to some community members, community residents out in Laie making inquiries regarding a male client that was had physical medical conditions and actual internal medical conditions. He was residing at a bus stop in front of Foodland. I actually took the time out and went out to see him maybe about 7 times. He was morbidly obese. He had some mental health issues. He had diabetes. He had asthma, so he was also a COVID risk factor. What made it challenging to house this individual was he didn't want to be linked up to any providers. He had some mistrust working with providers. Also, his mental health was making it another challenge to work with providers. He would only give bits and pieces of what was going on with himself. But LEP was able to collaborate with other providers like Kalihi Palama Health Center, Kahuku Hospital, HMSA, and what we were able to do was I also called his family members. I was able to contact his family members in Utah because that's where he's originally from, and it was great because I was also we were able to get copies of his documents from his family. But with the collaboration of services, we were able to house him in housing in Laie. The tricky part was finding a unit that could actually accommodate his height and his size. As I stated, he was about 360 pounds. He had a bariatric wheelchair, so we had to make sure that the bariatric wheelchair could fit. But it was great, seeing how providers, LEP, HPD, the Honolulu Fire Department, Kahuku Hospital, how we all kind of, and the Laie community actually came together to house this individual. So yeah, it was really heartfelt, heartwarming just to see how we can all come together. And basically, that's what it has. That's what we need to do. We need to work together, collaborate, and partner up. Because without partnering up, we would have not been able to house this individual.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Gracie. I think one of the powerful things that I took away from that situation is how it was recognized that Laie was his community. He wanted to stay there, and the community actually wanted to support him in staying there. And I think that's a very valuable thing that we were able to incorporate into the end results of this particular situation. And it's probably not the end of our relationship with this gentleman and with that community, as many of you know, our folks can go into housing and it can be almost as traumatic as being homeless. It's all the new surroundings, the new responsibilities, the making sure that they're abiding by all the rules. That can be a very stressful situation for anyone. And so often after, especially folks who have experienced homelessness for a long time, that initial placement may not always work out. And so being open and not expecting it, but making sure that the options are still available for that person to move somewhere else, and not get yourself frustrated after putting a lot of work moving someone into what you think may be the best place possible for them. And that's a challenge, I think, for case managers and outreach workers when things don't come out exactly right or do not stay stable. That can be difficult for us. Another question, do people have to be actually homeless to be eligible for services with LEP? If someone is fearful that they have to leave their unit, especially a sharing situation, and they also contact you?
Yes, client has to be houseless, but that doesn't stop me from providing resources to this client for housing. Normally, I talk with if the client themselves is contacting me, I gather information and then make sure that they are able to care for themselves, and then I provide them with the resources. And normally, like I said, we can cover LEP can do 25% of non-CES referrals. So I have assisted clientele with obtaining housing, and then also assisting them with linking them to funds if they need assistance with move-in costs.
All right. We have a question from Luana. Can you provide more info on future rapid rehousing funding for the providers and community? And I think I'll try and answer that, Luana, but if I'm not getting to your question, please expand on it. So yes, we are looking at some CARES funding coming into Honolulu County within the next couple of months. The broad strokes of the project have been a little bit lined up, but the details are still being worked on. But the hope is that a 12-month rapid rehousing program, so 12 months of guaranteed rent, would be available for hopefully up past 300 families or individuals over the next about 18 to 19 months. And so we will be, as partners in care, just like we would in every situation, we will be making sure that those folks who are in our by name list will be looked at for this type of resource, along with continuing with our baseline programs that are available through the Homeless Programs Office. as well as some of our federally funded rapid rehousing programs. One of the things, it's been such a difficult time for the last 8 months for providers and clients in our entire community, not knowing what's going to be happening. So it's a challenge we need to keep on working on what we've already been working on, our regular rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing projects. But I see it as a real silver lining that we might have a really big chunk of funding coming towards us that will hopefully alleviate homelessness for a big group of folks over the next year. And so we're really looking forward to that program coming to fruition. Like I said, it's still in the works, but I know that the city and HUD is working hard on making sure that those resources get to the folks who need it. As Nan commented earlier in the opening plenary session, we have a moratorium on evictions, and we don't really know what homelessness will look like after that moratorium is lifted. We may see a slow trickle into the homeless system. Hopefully it will be very small trickle, and rather than people moving into homelessness, that we will be able to support them through prevention efforts. But this is going to be a challenging next 2 to 3 years, and we're not going to be able to help everyone, and even those who get 12 months of rapid rehousing or any other program, the idea that they may fall back into homelessness is a high risk that we have. But like I said, looking over our entire system and trying to fill pukas wherever we can. I also thought it was very interesting, Gracie, I'm not sure what you thought of what Nan was saying. One of my biggest takeaways from the plenary session is that we are not treating homelessness as a crisis. And so sometimes we get in our own way of moving quickly with folks. And so, COVID has put a fire under us to get people into the safest situation possible. And I think we should continue to act like there is a fire under us and get folks into appropriate housing as quickly as possible. Gracie, you have anything to add on that?
No, you said it all. I totally agree. I think with just everything that's happening, yes, we're not treating houselessness as a crisis. And we need to address that.
And with that, I would like to bring the session to a close so that everyone can move on to their next session. Really appreciate Gracie being able to sit down and talk with us about the program. As a teaser, we're actually also hoping that there will be a veteran-focused landlord engagement project starting in the new year. And so this will be yet another opportunity to add resources to our amazing homeless service programs in the next year. We're looking at trying to get to functional zero with veteran homelessness. And so we're really hoping that moves forward for us. But just remember, the biggest takeaway I hope you have from this is that you've got a program in Partners in Care that is here to support all of the programs throughout Honolulu. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Our website again is www.partnersincareoahu.org. And with that, I thank you all for all the work that you're doing in the homeless system. And thank you for caring for our community like you have, and have a wonderful day. Aloha.